Hi, my name is Jessica. I, in this life, am an instructional designer, but in a previous life, I made a lot of motion graphics for shows that are not house hunters and involve log cabins. Um, I've been using After Effects for, gosh, almost 10, 11 years at this point, I think. I'm old. Just had a crazy realization. Don't mind me. And so today we're kind of gonna do a get your feet wet and play around with some like basic motion graphics in After Effects. So I believe it's been linked, but we had a couple people join. Oh, thank you. So the Spark page for the After Effects help page has a link to the resources that we will be using. Words are hard this morning. So if you click that first link there, open oh, here, I didn't share my screen. I'm real good at this Zoom thing. But if you click the link and go to the Spark page, turtle. Over here on the right, there is a button for the workshop downloads. That'll take you to a Google Drive folder. And in here, we are going to grab this folder here, Motion Graphics Basics. I'm going to download it. If Google decides to work, I don't know what it's doing. Well, while it's zipping that file, I can give you guys a little peek at what we'll be doing if you'd like. So here, this woof woof recess logo, we are going to be animating it. So you guys are going to learn how to do this today. A little simple in and out animation with a cute little doggy. And then maybe to pique some interest, should I show them the bonus, Brian?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So there's also another folder here with some bonus files. And this is kind of showing you a not extreme example, but an example of like something you can do using basically all of the same techniques we'll be talking about today, and taking it a step further. The exact same logo, same assets, just taking one more step. It's so cute. Little, oh, I like little side to side. I'm obsessed with it. Is anyone else having trouble downloading the zip files, or is it just me?
I was able to download it fine.
Okay. I have them on my machine, so I can I'll just do that, I suppose. All right, so I'm gonna fire up After Effects and protect my water from my cat because nobody likes drinking paw water. Let's back to my other screen. All right. Awesome. So your home screen might look like mine, maybe not. So I'm just going to close this pop-up so we can talk about kind of the main 4 areas of After Effects before we get started. A little quick tour. Okay, awesome. Seems like everyone's able to access the files, but me. Ironic, probably. All right. Anyway, quick tour. So over here on the left-hand side up top, we have the project panel. This is where you're going to see everything that we're going to import, your compositions, which we'll talk about what those are here in a moment, and kind of all of your assets and fun stuff. Over here in the middle, I wish I had like one of those television teleprompter-y draw-y things so I could like draw boxes and stuff. That I think that would be nice. But anyway, over here in the middle is the composition panel. This is where we're going to see kind of everything that we're doing. You'll see your files and where a lot of the magic happens. And then let me move you guys. Over here, we have the kind of info, effects and presets. It's kind of the catch-all for everything else. You have your preview area here, which controls how we'll see like a full preview of what we're animating in the timeline. And then down here is the timeline. Let me close that. I don't know why the render key is down there right now. Is the timeline. And this is where we'll see all of our layers and kind of where the magic happens. So we're going to get started by creating a new composition from footage. You can click this super awesome button here, or go File, New. We're going to make a new project to start because you should always start by creating a file and saving it. And we will take save breaks several times because, well, After Effects has gotten better, especially in the recent years. When it first kind of like I started learning to use it anyway, it was a little notorious for crashing. So I have save PTSD. Is that a real thing? So we'll be taking save breaks, but sorry. Anyway, we're going to go File, New, Project. It's just going to clear anything if you had anything open. Yeah, well, I want to start from the same place. Let's save this bad boy. Go File, Save As. Let's make I'm going to put it, I already have a folder set up for the After Effects workshop, but if you don't, good idea to make one, and keep all of your files from the workshop together. So the files that you had downloaded from the Google Drive, you can drag them in there, or you can pop this in there too. However you want to organize your files and manage them. I'm just going to call this workshop, and I'm going to click save. And we made our first project. So now we're going to create a composition from footage. And so compositions are basically the bones, if After Effects had bones. I think that's how I would describe it. They are where kind of everything happens. You'll put all of your assets, media, sounds, videos, pictures, all that fun stuff in these compositions. So there are buckets. Oh, was there a question, Brian? Okay, I just saw you flip your camera on. So I'm going to click new composition from footage. And then I am going to go into let me go back here. That's the Adobe Media. sorry, one moment. I thought I still had the packaged files on here. But so if you go to footage in the After Effects or the motion graphics basics folder, click on the footage folder that should be inside there. Then click on the Woof Recess logo layers and click on the Woof Recess logo.ai file. Because I was having trouble downloading the folder. I can't show you guys, I'm sorry. So we are going to click on that. And then down here where it says import as, I'm going to click on composition. This is very important, or your file won't come in correctly. It might look a little different on Mac. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. But it should still be an option down there towards the bottom of your.
Yeah, it just looks more like the Mac Finder window, but it is still import to. It's just import to is on the left of the dropdown.
Awesome. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. So after we have composition selected, we're going to click import. And you'll see that our files popped in over here in the project pane. We kind of just briefly blew past in our quick tour.
I think we did have a question that was pretty good. If you have a second, since we're still on import, what's the difference between the 3 import options?
Yeah, so footage is bringing in a asset here. I could also just demonstrate as well. Bringing in an asset like as it is like as the file is. So if I bring in this logo file as footage, it's just going to bring in a single layer picture, essentially. Whereas composition and composition retain layer sizes brings in the file with the layers preserved. The composition is kind of like if you think of like an Photoshop or Illustrator file and how it has kind of all of those layers in there to make, wonderful and amazing things. Those are, you could kind of think of a composition as that, like it holds all of those.
Yeah. And can I add one bit? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sweet. So, and the benefit of choosing a composition, and one of the benefits of After Effects, I think, is how well it plays with other Adobe applications. So you can create a look for something or something that you want to animate. You can build basically the layers how you like them inside of Illustrator or After Effects. And then when you import as a composition, you have access to manipulate each layer individually if you bring it in as a composition. If it's just footage, all you have is the flat finished image.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a really great explanation of that. And then composition retain layer sizes is essentially it's my preferred choice, but I didn't want to do too much crazy stuff. So essentially it's going to preserve any data that is in that original file, that like Illustrator or Photoshop file, the size information. So like if you had a background that maybe was a little bit bigger than the artboard or the canvas, it would bring in that data, and essentially you would have the full-sized image and it wouldn't like crop it. And I don't know how to articulate the other difference, but it keeps things like constrained. It's
sure. Are we talking about composition as layers?
The composition retain layer sizes.
Sure. Does that maintain the original layer sizes from the original composition?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I can kind of show you the difference of how they look here. We'll import the logo and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna, we have the just composition import here, and then the composition retain layer sizes here as Wolf Recess logo too. So I'm going to open up the composition version. And here you can see the bounding box around the files is that of the composition window. And when I open up the 2 version, you can see that the bounding box around it preserves kind of the information of that original layer instead of the whole composition window. So that's kind of the visual difference of using those. It more comes into play later, which is why it's the preferred way to import things. But for getting started, you don't need to worry about it. So it's kind of a intermediate level technique, I'd say. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think we got it. It's perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to pop back to that Wolf Recess logo. And I did that by double clicking. I realized I didn't say that. So over here in the project panel, these like little kind of footage, I wish I could make this bigger so that you guys could see it. But it looks kind of like a little movie clip. Those are compositions, and that's what compositions look like in this area. So if you double click it, it will pop it open in the timeline and open it up over here in the middle in your composition window. So go back to my notes. So we're going to talk about the timeline for a moment, and we're going to kind of organize these files a bit, or these layers, I should say. I shouldn't say files, before we get started. So I'm going to turn off this brown background because I don't think I want to use it. And I think I'm going to use the white text instead of the brown text. So, and feel free to make whatever kind of visual choices you would like to make. So if you'd like to use the brown text, feel free. We'll be doing the exact same things. And I'm just turning these off by clicking the eyeball icon right here. And then, because I'm crazy, I'm going to click the lock button and lock these layers so that I don't touch them by accident for some crazy reason. They're unclickable when they're locked. So nice safety precaution. All right. So in that preview animation, we had kind of like a cute grass background. I think I'm going to bring that in. And so here is where we're going to import footage, kind of circling back to our previous conversation about importing footage versus composition. And the reason that we're importing this as footage is because it's just a picture. It's just a JPEG. Doesn't have any special layers pulled out of it like Illustrator or Photoshop file. So kind of a shortcut way to quickly import something is over here in the project panel. So if you just double click, it opens up your Finder window here. And in the, going back to the Google Drive, 1 second. It should be in the footage right there on the footage folder. It's just the park.jpg file. I'm going to click that, make sure that it says footage here. Oh. Yep, you are in the right spot. Yeah, we're importing the park picture. Or, oh, sorry. I misread that. Brian, sorry.
Totally fine. You're good.
I know how to read. All right, so footage, and then I'm going to click import. And as you can see, it kind of just has a little picture icon next to it because it's a JPEG. And I'll give you guys a couple moments. You can throw some thumbs up if you're ready for me to move on. Got 2, 3. Okay. Give Charlene a moment. All right. So I am going to click the Park JPEG here in the project panel, and I'm just going to drag it down here to the timeline. And you can kind of see that blue line here. That essentially indicates like where you are in the layer stack. So I want it to be the background. So I'm going to drop it behind the dog logo and the white text. And ta-da! Guys, a few moments. And as you can see, the park.jpg file is a little bit bigger than our composition window. So we can kind of do a lot of cool stuff with that here in a moment. But before we start kind of playing around with all the different properties, we should probably make sure that our timeline and our composition are the length that we want them. Because now we got our files. Let's get our time set and then we'll get going. So I'm going to go up here to composition. And then here in the second option, composition settings. It's a Command K, I think, on Mac and Control K on PC. Probably doesn't help that I'm on a PC. I'm sorry. Most of you are probably on Mac. And then down here, where it says like resolution, start time code, and duration, we're just going to adjust this duration to like 3 seconds, because 5 seconds is a little long. So it's just a quick logo on, logo off, like a start to like a video or a quick little like social media like pop on for a product or something. So all right, so I just changed the 5 to a 3. And I'm gonna click OK. And as you can see, our timeline kind of changed in appearance here because it automatically updated. Very true, Brian. Composition length is very important because After Effects can be super computer intensive, especially as you kind of get further along and start applying like effects. Oh boy, those can really start to make your machine hum. I almost said scream, but I don't think that's appropriate.
Sometimes cry.
Sometimes cry. One of my favorite memes of all time is actually like 2 people in the winter and it's like cold and they're out of firewood or something. And they're having a conversation and one says to the other, like, I have to do it. And then the next panel is them opening up After Effects. And then they're standing around the computer like it's the fire. Little funny design humor.
I like that one.
Yeah, my poor I shouldn't call it the trash can, but that's what it was. My computer at my the television production company was one of those Apple things, the little cylinders. It would always, anytime I opened After Effects, just start humming. Anyway, back on track here. Trash can Mac Pro, yes. All right. So we got our layers, we got our timeline set. I think we're ready to start with some animation basics and, get these layers moving and doing more than just sitting here looking cool. Because I mean, this dog is really cute. All right. So I kind of briefly touched on it, but that park.jpg is a little big. We can kind of click in the composition window. I used my mouse wheel to make my, control the zoom of the composition like size thing. Words are hard. the fit to the window, essentially. That's how I'm kind of moving in and out really fast. So if you have a scroll wheel, you can give that a whirl. But if you click with the park layer selected and within its kind of bounding box, you kind of click and drag and move it around. You can find, a layout that you like a kind of like that. But if you liked the grass, use the grass. If you want to use the sky, because you have the brown text, that'd be kind of cool, actually. At the bottom. I turned off the wrong layer. Like that. That's pretty cool too. You can kind of play around with the layers to kind of make a stage that you would like to use to start animating on. So I'm going to I like the grass. Makes me think of recess as a kid. All right. So we got our starting point. Does anyone need a moment to find their starting point? I grew up in Montana, Brian. So I had grass and mountains and street or city deer. So many city deer. Almost called them street deer. I think Tucson's wearing off them. All right. Doesn't look like anyone is needing a moment. So the first kind of pillar property that we're going to play with is scale. And going back to just opening up the file on my computer so we can scrub through it a little easier. So here we can see the logo starts out really small and it spins and has a bit of a scale change. Scale obviously controls the size of an object in the timeline. So for the dog art, we're gonna play with rotation, scale. And for the text here, we are going to play with the transparency and position properties. Okay. Anyway, I like watching. So I'm going to click on the dog logo layer down here in our timeline. And then over here on the left-hand side, kind of have this little right pointing bracket. I'm just going to click that. And then I'm going to click the one next to transform. And hey, look, it's all of the thing, all of the different properties that we just kind of talked about. We have scale, rotation, opacity, or transparency, and position. So these are all of the things that we're going to play with today. Yes, good point. It's always a good idea to kind of have like a vision or just something that you want to accomplish before you start. So, things like storyboards or a reference video are always kind of that great, like step one point. It's a good point, Brian. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down on my notes here. Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, did someone have a question? I hear a. Okay, sorry. Thought someone was unmuting to ask a question. All right, so we are going to start by making the kind of little dog logo start from 0 scale, so basically nothing, to its full size. How we're going to do that is we're going to use keyframes. And keyframes are kind of the, I think words are failing me today. I feel like I used a really great definition on the website. But keyframes basically handle all of the animation that happens in After Effects. So if something changes or moves over time, it is being controlled by keyframes. I don't know. Brian, do you have something you want to add about keyframes? You're really good at words. I just make things look cool.
Sorry, I was finding the mute button. I'm actually going to steal your words for this. So on the document, it says keyframes are wheels that animation and movement that make animation movement happen in After Effects. So they're kind of like the catalyst for if it moves, you're typically manipulating it with a keyframe.
Those are really great. Thank you for using my words. I'm eloquent in not verbal format. Sorry, guys. This is what you signed up for. I'm sorry. All right, so we are going to we're going to use keyframes to adjust the scale of the logo. So here, these little stopwatch icons, this is how basically like keyframes happen and how you know that a layer has keyframes on it. So if I were to click the scale right now, the stopwatch turns blue. And then over here in our timeline, let me move that out of the way. You can kind of see a little blue diamond has appeared. And that is a keyframe. It's not going to do much because you need to have a start and a stop. Otherwise, there's no information for the like keyframes to essentially relate any kind of change. So we'll do that here in a moment. I adjusted my playhead, this little guy here, so you could see the diamond, but I'm going to move it right back to the start where we put that keyframe. And I'm actually going to over here where it says 100%. I'm going to click and I'm just going to type in 0. And let me make this bigger, fit it to my screen. Over here in the composition window or panel, I'm really bad about being consistent with words. You can see that our dog logo has disappeared because it is a scale of 0. And you can also adjust scale by clicking and dragging. This goes for any of these properties here too. You can click and drag to adjust the size as well. You don't have to type it in. I'm slightly neurotic and like exact control. So, all right. So we got our first keyframe down. Scale is set to 0. Let's tell After Effects to like return the dog to its original size, essentially. So I'm going to click the playhead and I'm going to drag it forward. To like here, which sorry, I didn't talk about this. So the timeline has kind of like it shows you, depending on the length of your composition, it'll show you like the seconds. So here, this is 1 second, 0 frames, 2 seconds, 0 frames. Here, 3 seconds, 0 frames. So I moved my playhead here to basically 10 frames in. But you can put it wherever you'd like. You don't have to do what I do. This is all about having fun and being creative. So we are going to tell After Effects to return this to 100%, basically how the same way that we told it to be 0. I'm just going to click and I'm going to type in 100. And the dog logo is back. And if you were to drag your playhead through, you can see like it has created that animation over time. Boop. Super fun. So the next property, I'm going to go back to the video here, our little reference. All right. So you can kind of see that it has a bit of a interesting rotation. It's kind of on a bit of a spiral. Almost like the rotation's coming from like here, down by its paws. Interesting, right? So to do that, we are going to adjust another property that we haven't talked about yet, and that is the anchor point. The anchor point is essentially kind of describes itself. It is the anchor point for a layer, a composition, a image, an asset, like whatever you're bringing in. Most of the time it's dead center. Sometimes there's weird exceptions. As you can see here, the anchor point is this, this is the anchor point. It's this kind of like crosshairs looking guy right here, smack dab in the middle of our composition. So to move him, we are going to click this tool up here. It's called the pan behind tool. It's also Y on your keyboard. If you just want to push that, it'll just automatically select the tool for you. And then with the dog layer, the dog logo layer selected in our timeline, I'm just going to click and drag it down here. Boop. Like that. And then so that to not make a mistake and accidentally click something and move an anchor point that I don't want to, I'm just going to go back to the selection tool, and that's just here, this little pointer guy here, or V on your keyboard. That'll just return you back to normal. And something interesting happened when we adjusted the anchor point. Can you guys tell what happened? It also changed how the scale is happening and where the scale is being controlled from. Yeah. Perfect. Exactly, Michael. Thank you. So yeah. So let's add that rotation. So similar to how we adjusted the scale, so the size of the logo, we're going to do exactly the same thing with the rotation. So I'm going to click the stopwatch to drop my first keyframe. And then I'm going to drag my playhead back over to the same spot where the 10 frame mark, or wherever you chose, wherever, if you're doing it quicker or slower. But the same spot that you had your scale stop at. Drag your playhead there, and then this is where it gets fun. Rotation's my favorite property of all time. It's the best to play with. So as you can kind of see here, we have a 0 that we can control, and then a degree that we can control. So you can kind of finely tune how much you would like something to rotate based on like a degree point, or you can tell After Effects by typing in on the left here where it's the 0x. I can tell After Effects, I want this to spin 10 times over 10 frames, or twice over 10 frames. And it'll make complete 300 and, is it 60 or 80? Oh God. Rotations in that essentially like your beginning and end. So to see what that looks like. Oh, wait. Oh. Wait, what? After Effects? Hello? Hello? Did they change this?
I don't think so.
Why isn't it working?
Oh,
there it goes. 10 was just too many, apparently. It must have been. Oh, because it was 10 frames.
Yeah, that's a great thing to note, is like
10 frames, 10 rotations. It's not going to show up because you can't. There's no such thing as a half a frame. I'm just I'm a silly goose. Okay, so I'm going to set it to 0 degrees, 2 rotations. 10 was a terrible number to choose. And I'm going to push spacebar on my computer, and this is going to just give you a quick preview of what we've done so far. Boop. So yeah, two seems like a good number. You can get real crazy and go like 5. Let's see how 5 looks. Probably gonna be wild. Yeah. Because it's only 10 frames, 5 rotations. It's basically flipping back and forth because there's not enough time data for it to make a proper rotation. So you can kind of see some funny stuff that can happen when using rotation, which is why it's like my favorite property sometimes. Because it just does weird things. And plus, like, I don't know, spinning things are cool. But anyway, so yeah, we got our logo spinning on, scaling up. Let's look at our source here. Spin, scale. Oh, what was that? That little pop? We got to do that. And that is done with scale. So let's do that next. So with your playhead at wherever you chose to stop your initial scale, for me it's 10 frames. I am going to move ahead. I'm just going to click and very, very gently just move ahead 1 frame. You can also, I'm unsure of the command on Mac. I think it's just command. But on PC, if you push Control and then on your direction pad on your keyboard, you can move left, click left and right, and it'll move you ahead 1 frame in your timeline. I think it's command. Is it command, Brian?
It is command left and right on Mac, control left and right on PC.
Awesome. So I'm just going to move ahead 1 frame, maybe 2, 1. We'll do 1. And then for my scale, I'm going to just type in 110%. That seems like a good size. You can go crazy, go like 120, get really big. If we wanted the pop to be the boing, I guess. Boing is a better description. If you wanted it to be like very exaggerated and cartoony, or like you could do a bigger scale increase, or if you wanted it to be a little more realistic, 110, 105% might be good. I like the more kind of cartoony things, so I'm going to leave it at 120. And then I'm going to move ahead 1 more frame. Boop. And I'm going to click. And I'm going to type in 100. As you can see, we'll just hit return to the beginning and push play. Oh, that's kind of a little too quick. So let's adjust that. One of the great things about keyframes is these aren't permanent, and you can click and drag them to kind of fine tune and finesse your animations in the timeline. So let's give it a little more breath, or like a little bit more time to kind of like let the animation happen, because it's a little too quick, that pop, right? Like couldn't really tell what was happening there. So I'm going to just give it another frame. I'm just gonna, starting here at the last keyframe I dropped, I'm gonna click. So it's blue, and then I'm just gonna drag it 1 over. And then I'm gonna do the same thing to this middle one. Click, drag it 1 over. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so 2 over, 1 over. And let's see how that looks. Well, it looks a little more natural. A little less like choppy. There's like, well, you can actually see the movement happen and let it happen. Okay, sorry, I was reading the chat, making sure there wasn't a question. So I'm just going to repeat this a couple times to kind of give it a little bit more spring and bounce. So we started at, or I did anyway. I started at 120%. So I'm going to make this next one that I place. So I'm going to move ahead 2. I'm going to make it 110%. Oops, that's 100. I know how to type. And then I'm going to move ahead 2. And I'm going to go back to 100. So we've placed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keyframes. Yeah. It seems a little more natural, a little springy, fun. So if I was doing this for like a client, maybe when this bounce happens in the audio track that they gave me, maybe there's like a woof sound, or there's some sort of sound effect to cue this. So you could use that sound effect to, fine tune those keyframes so that it lines up with it. Kind of a like real world example of how you could adjust the keyframes to what's happening on screen, or like what you're planning to do based on your storyboards or the materials that your client, your instructor, your friend, your family, whoever gave you. Awesome. So I think our dog logo, I think we're done moving that around. Let's just go back here, reference it again really quick. I'm just scrubbing through. Got the pop. It hangs out. And then it goes away, which we'll do at the end. But I think we got our basic animation done. So let's move on to getting the text on screen. And oops. So the text, I keep looking at the chat and it's just Brian adding really great information.
Sorry, just adding context.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So the logo looks like there's some transparency and position movement. So those are the 2 properties that we are going to use to animate the text logo. So I'm just going to collapse these here. And you do that by just kind of clicking that little down arrow on the dog logo file in the timeline, or layer in the timeline. Sorry, file is not the right word to use there. Just gonna collapse it, tuck it away. You can leave it open if you want. I like keeping things pretty neat and tidy. And that was autosave that you just saw. So we're going to take a save break. You're going to go File, Save, or just like in any other computer application, you can go Command or Control S. Just save where you're at right now. Give yourself a restore point. I'll give everyone a second to do that. All right. So let's start on kind of doing something with one of these text layers. So depending on which one you chose to use, whether it was the white or the brown layer, we will, do what I'm doing in that layer that you chose that you'd like to use. Words are hard. I'm using the white text. So I'm just going to, just like we did with the dog logo layer, I'm just going to click that right facing arrow to bring up the transform. And then I'm going to click the arrow next to transform. And we got our properties exactly the same. as the properties for the dog logo. Only this time we're going to use position and opacity. So going back to our source here. Sorry, I'm sure you guys are tired of seeing this source. So it looks like it starts off screen, comes up with a transparency change there. So I'm going to click the text layer, white or brown, whatever one you'd like to use. And then in the composition panel here, I'm just going to click. And then if you hold shift while you move, click and drag, it will lock your layer in kind of a like linear fashion. So because the text layer is dead centered, as you can see, with the composition, and I just want it to like move up, and essentially like this is our end point. It's already there for us. We are gonna kind of do this a little backwards. So I'm going to move ahead to 10 frames where our animation stops. And then down here, I'm going to click the stopwatch for position and drop a keyframe there. Because this is where I want it to end. Why do double work? Sweet, tricky backwards moves. So now I'm going to click and drag my playhead and move it back to the beginning. And then here, I'm going to, in the composition frame, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to drag down until it's off screen. And as you click and drag down, you might notice this line here. This is kind of the physical representation of the timeline in the composition window. So when you see something like this, you can see like, oh, this was a position change, or something's moving from one point to another. So you can, fun way to kind of like dissect a file really quick or an After Effects project really quick. Is you can kind of like look for these things. I can make it an easier color to see for you guys. And did you notice that, oh, look, it's our friend Anchor Point that kind of controls that too. Little interesting tie back to when we were talking about the anchor point. All right. So I'm just going to zoom out of this a little bit so you can see it a little better. So we got our logo coming up. We got the spin happening on the doggy. Awesome. So kind of repeating the process here. We are going to adjust the opacity. And we want it to start at 0 because it fades on. So I'm going to click the stopwatch next to opacity on my logo layer, or text layer, not the dog logo layer. And then I'm going to type in 0. Move my playhead forward to 10 frames. And I'm going to type in 100. Bam. We did it, team. Logo fades on. Got our dog pop. All right. So let's quickly get this animating out. Because we are starting to run out of time. I'm going to take a pause though. Are there any questions about kind of what we've created so far, what we've discussed so far. I have the tendency to talk really fast, and I'm not the best with words. So feel free to type your question in the chat or unmute if you have a question.
Looks like everybody's got it.
I know, you guys are like pros. I should have pulled out the bonus files. Gosh.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Hey, Jason, that's a really great point. I look young, but I also have old fingers. So it is a nice little being able to do this instead of clicking and dragging is quite convenient. Awesome. So let's get these animating out then, I suppose. I'm just going to take a quick peek at my keyframes from the little bounce because I want to give the logo time to sit on screen so that people could read it and kind of see what's happening. So probably want this to start maybe like the 2-second mark. Seems like a good place. Nice pause on screen, and then we'll kick it out off screen. And fun little shortcut I did without saying anything was with that dog logo layer selected on my keyboard, I pushed U, and that brought the layers down. So that's what I did there. All right, so let's go back to our source, a little mini storyboard, and see how it comes off. So we got scale, goes to 0. Kind of has a little bit of a similar bounce from before, and then it shrinks down. So the reverse of kind of what we just did, minus the rotation. Easy peasy. So I am going to, this part, I feel like this is a terrible habit that I have that I've never been able to shake in all of my years of using After Effects. So don't follow what I'm about to do. It's a better way. So I'm going to adjust this to 110. Sorry. I'm going to adjust it to 100 to drop a keyframe. And this essentially will lock our scale in place, because if I were to go like this and start that kind of pop, bounce, and then suck down, if I were to type in 120, as you can see, without that kind of like lock there, it's just kind of gonna scale up to that point and just go.
Jessica, so, can I add a bit?
Yes.
Here. So if you don't want to do that, could you move to just a blank area?
Yeah.
All right, cool. To the immediate left of the keyframes over there, you'll see an empty diamond on the parameter you're trying to adjust. Click on that. That will drop a keyframe at whatever the scale is right now.
That's the right way to do it. Don't do what I do. It is a terrible habit.
Yeah, you need you need especially if you're holding something, you need like an extra keyframe to be that bridge before you animate, so that you don't get that like really slow scaling up or down.
Yeah, just click here, click here. But in my like a panic of I gotta animate this out, old habits die hard.
100%. I have so many bad ones.
So
Sorry.
bad. It's like the one habit I haven't been able to break in After Effects. Anyway, I digress. So I'm going to delete this keyframe that we just kind of placed haphazardly. to demonstrate. So I have my hold point for the second and some change on screen. So I'm going to move forward 2 frames. And just like we did with the bounce before, I'm going to type in 120. Forward 2 frames. I'm going to type in 100. And then forward 2 frames, 110. So we got kind of our little whoop. I like sound effects. We got our little bounce. So then I'm going to give it more than 2 seconds to, or 2 frames to kind of animate downscale. So I'm going to move my playhead to maybe this like 2 second, 15 frame mark here. And here I'm going to type in 0. And push spacebar. Got our bounce and our suck down. Awesome. So let's get this text off screen now. How does that go down? Kind of similarly, it has a little bit of a boing and then a spring down. So that one's different, but it's all position. So going back to our text layer, I'm just going to go straight to the position property. And I'm going to do that by selecting the layer and then pushing P on my keyboard. And because we're starting at the 2 second mark here, easy spot, going to do it right. I'm going to drop a keyframe to hold the position for that length of time. And then I'm going to move my playhead forward 2 seconds or 2 frames. Words. And then here, we didn't talk about this much, but these are X and Y coordinates. So X is horizontal, right? Yeah. And Y, up and down. So you can kind of click and drag in each of these areas to kind of give yourself a easy way to control the position, as opposed to like clicking in the composition window, pressing shift and then like dragging where you'd like it to animate off. This is kind of like a way to fine tune that. Have a little bit more control. So we want it to bounce a little bit. So I'm going to go up, move 2 frames, and here's where we're going to do something new. I'm going to click the keyframe that we had just placed at the 2 second mark, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. So Windows Control C and Mac Command C. So I'm going to make sure that keyframe is selected before you copy. So I'm just going to go C and B. And look at that. It, bam, placed the exact same 960, 540 position. 960, 540. Easy way to kind of, quickly repeat like kind of these quick little springy animations, or if you're like constantly finding yourself starting from like a 100 to quickly to something, number back to 100, easy way to shoot yourself back to that start point. Copy and pasting those keyframes. So we got our bounce, Let's have it slide off screen. So I'm going to drag it to that same 2-second, 15 frame point. And then I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to drag it down until you can't see it anymore. Awesome. All right, so let's, there was a transparency shift there where it faded off. So let's quickly do that. I'm going to use another keyboard shortcut, and this one's gonna probably throw you for a loop. And also why I've used the term transparency over opacity. You probably heard me using them pretty interchangeably. And that is because the keyboard shortcut for opacity in the like for layers is T. It made no sense to me when I first started using After Effects and drove me crazy because I wanted to push O because all the others matched up with their property. And then it finally dawned on me after an embarrassing amount of time that it's T for transparency. So yeah. All right, so I pushed T, and then that brought up the opacity property on my text layer. I'm going to drop my hold keyframe, and then I'm going to move my playhead all the way over to the 2-second 15 point because I want this change to happen over that entire amount of time, as opposed to like how we kind of started our animation. And it ended about 2-second 5 frame. Yeah. Yeah, don't press O. Don't do it. Brian is a good point. So playhead's at 2 seconds, 15 frames, and I'm just going to type in 0. Bam. And we have our logo on and off. You guys are basically animators now. Like Disney who? So let's add with kind of our remaining couple minutes here. We're going to kind of add some quick, easy way, like flair to our little animated sequence. And the first thing I'm going to talk about, you might have noticed whenever I keep bringing up this example, is there's this like blur happening here on all of the movement, and that is motion blur. It isn't on by default, so we're going to turn that bad mama jamma on, because as you can see, like our art doesn't have that kind of cool natural kind of naturally occurring blur that happens. It looks nice and clean and pristine. So over here, in like our layer area, we have these like 3 boxes. This first one on the left is the motion blur. And I am going to turn it on for all of the layers that I have an eyeball on for, because motion blur is a great way to make After Effects mad. It's one of those things where needlessly applying it to a layer that you're not using just increases the load on your computer. So if you just have like a background or something that you're not using, don't apply it to your thing, because just more information that doesn't need anything. And when I clicked that, you kind of instantly saw that motion, that blur being applied. right away to the dog logo. So it's kind of a quick and easy way to add kind of just some more flair. To your compositions. Yeah, I think we hit on everything. Got about 10 minutes left. So if anyone has like questions, I am here for you.
While we're waiting for those, how do we save this out?
Oh, yes. Good
Good
idea.
So we can put it somewhere.
Yeah. So maybe you want to share this on social media or something like, hey, I took this really cool workshop by this crazy girl. She's really bad ADD. Anyway, we are going to save our work just so it's good. It's going to ask you to save it again, but whatever. We're going to go to File, Export, and we are, oh wait, no, here. I keep forgetting it's here now. I'm not used to rendering this way since they really started. Adobe is they started like being a little cooler with their media encoder, which kind of makes me sad because the old render sound is just, I miss it. I miss the sound and then the rage that comes when you hear the sheep sound. Anyway, we're going to go to composition here at the top. And then we are going to add to Adobe Media Encoder queue. And that will pop open Adobe Media Encoder. Hopefully you have it installed and I didn't just like break all your computers.
I think it auto installs with After Effects.
Does it?
I think so.
Okay, good.
Can't swear to that, but I'm pretty sure.
Good. Oh yeah. I big fan of ease keyframes. They are a great way to add even more like natural movement to your keyframes because kind of like how the name suggests, movement eases in and then like eases out. I just didn't want to, I wasn't sure how like the skill level of everyone here, and I didn't want to overwhelm anybody, but easy ease is a great way to kind of quickly throw some of that like natural easing that occurs in the world on movement. So yeah, use them if you know how. They're awesome. But anyway, back to rendering. So I added it to my Adobe Media Encoder queue, and the settings should be good. H.264 is a really great format for like low file size, easily shared online. So you shouldn't have to do much touching here. Brian, interrupt me if I'm very incorrect here, but
You typically leave it alone unless there's a good reason or the client asks for a specific output. So yeah, if you're posting on the web, everything compresses at H.264 at this point. So
it's a standard, which is nice. But yeah, we're just gonna hit the green button to go. Love the colors.
Yeah, I kind of like how it's like an old like a DVD or tape deck.
Yeah. Awesome. So that outputted to my folder here. Did it go to the renders folder? I should have showed you guys how to pick your output. I'm sorry. I'm the worst. Here in your queue, if you push before you render, if you click kind of where this blue text is, it'll bring up your like finder window, and you can establish like where you'd like your output to go. So if you had a project folder or a folder with like client files, you could directly drop your video there. And when you're done and you click it, it'll just pop it, show you where it rendered to. So, hey, look, it's our animation that we just made. Awesome sauce. Yeah. Here, I'll there's a fly in my house. Oh my god. So you're saying the rotation, you're probably going left, I'm guessing, if it's backwards.
You want
You
to
can
rotate counterclockwise? Is that what we're talking about?
yeah. So you can actually throw a negative in front of the, like for me, I have this rotating twice. So you could make it go -2, and that will make it rotate counterclockwise. That makes sense. Additionally, go to this keyframe. You can click and drag this. Boop, 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 boop. To the left. I was getting to a good point where I could show you the digits changing to the negative, to also kind of fine tune control it going counterclockwise as well. Yay! Great, Michael. I'm glad that worked. I should have explained clockwise and counterclockwise movement there. Sneaky, tricky. Yeah, Jason. Yeah, After Effects is great because like you can plug it directly into Premiere. Oh yeah. Anyone wants to kind of see, I know at the beginning of the workshop I showed you the bonus. This guy here, right? This cool guy. I can kind of show you guys what's going on with that with our last couple minutes if you'd like to see. So I'm just going to save this because I'm going to open up a new project. So I'm just going to open up the bonus materials After Effects file. So if you downloaded the entire folder from Google Drive, this will be in here in the bonus materials there. Okay. So this project has a lot of like really cool things going on. In After Effects, there is something called pre-comping and or pre-compositioning. And essentially that's nesting compositions within compositions. So if you think about how compositions are like a file with layers, you can put a file with layers in another file with layers, which gives you more freedom to kind of do more intricate and interesting animations like this one. So for this one, we, similar to the first logo, the like anchor point like needs to be in the middle just because of how it comes on. So we couldn't have it down here or anywhere, which kind of required because of the type of the animation that I have on the dog, it required me to pre-composition it so that it could come on properly, but also, you know, the animation I'm going to show you that's happening in the dog can still happen naturally as well. That makes sense. So to open that up and kind of see what's going on here in the fancy dog animation composition, and down here in the timeline for that composition, I'm just going to double click the composition that's in the composition. And as you can see here, there's a lot of keyframes and a lot going on. And this is where the composition retain layer sizes also comes in handy. Because as you can see, the bounding box is around each of the individual things as opposed to the entire composition window and the composition size. So it gives you even more fine control. Oh, yeah, a whole stocking doll situation. And yeah, feel free to leave. I'm just kind of showing off some things and hanging around to answer questions. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. I really appreciate it. After Effects is my favorite Adobe program. It's what I went to school for, and I just love sharing it with people. So yay, I'm glad, Michael. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.